So happy to be with family when these weeks are here. And that's what I feel like this is. You all are the family, and it's really nice to be together. Um, so this, I think for me, this week's Parsha, Lech Lecha, could not come at a better time. Maybe that's the way with all Torah, but particularly this one really gets me. Um, and I think often we think about Lech Lecha as a parsha, part of the Torah that's about journeying and going forth into the unknown. And that certainly is a big theme. But I feel like reading it this week, what really jumped out at me was this kind of intimate, beautiful conversation that is happening throughout the adventures of Avram in these foreign lands, and the conversation that he is having with the divine, with like the source of life throughout this chapter, this parsha, is so beautiful. And it gets at least for me, a lot of the feelings that have come up this week, um, but often come up around dread and fear and an inability to understand. I would say like despair. Like how are we going to get through this? How is this possible? How are we going to all these things that we've been promised, that Avram is promised right at the get, like, you're going to go on this journey and you will be blessed. You will have these like multitudinous descendants, and good things are going to happen to you, and you're going to be this source of blessing. And as the parsha is going on, not happening, not happening, not happening, like just more pain and more difficulty and more pain and more difficulty and more challenges that he's kind of getting out of these scrapes. And um, Avram says to God at one point, like, I don't see any evidence. I'm old. I don't have any kids. I don't see any evidence that anything good is going to happen. And the responses throughout the Parsha are more than responses. They're practice instructions, because the responses from God are raise your eyes from this painful, constricted, like inner looking place of dread and despair. God says, like, raise your eyes up, look out to the horizon. Like, that is going to look a whole lot different in a long period of time. Later, God says, look up at the stars. Even more than that, I'm going to actually give you the lines in Hebrew. It says, V'yotse oto hachutza, and God took Moses outside. So again, God could have just like told Moses, not Moses, Avram. God could have told Avram, like, everything's going to be okay. But instead, there's this almost like physical instruction, taking Avram outside and saying, like, look up at the stars and count the stars. And in these like repeated practices, like count up all the sand, you can't, it's impossible. Count up all the stars, you can't, it's impossible. It's this like tethering to something bigger and faster than we can see when we're inside of the constriction and the dread and the despair. And it's saying, I know cannot you can't see it any hope right now. You cannot see your way to like how we're going to get out of this. And I'm still telling you, there is this other way. There is this bigger picture that you'll be held in. Um, and it's not toxic positivity. Mark and I were joking about this before the call. Like, it's not like just buck up, everything's going to be okay. Because there is also this particular line that God says to Avram, which is like, Avram is feeling all of this dread. Literally, the words say he feels this overwhelming dread. And God says, yeah, bad things are going to happen. Like it's not Pollyanna-ish. Like there's going to be 400 years of slavery for your people in the future. Like there is real trauma, and this is a real thing. And again, thank you, Mark, for the English on there. And at the same time, there is a different lens. There's the lens that we can hold at the same time as the real grief and the real pain, that is this lens of the stars in the sky and the vastness of what we can see from the mountaintop. There's a sense of this world, this earth, this planet, this life is bigger and more profound than everything that we can imagine right now. And we can also hold our grief and our pain. Both things can be true at the same time. There's This is the final thing I'll add, and then we'll sit, is that right before the election, people were posting all kinds of stuff on social media, and The Daily Show, posted this thing that was a kind of a joke, which was like, no matter how the election results go, just remember that we'll all face the sweet release of death, or something like that. Like, comfort yourself with this idea, which is like a joke. But it actually comforted me more than anything else, especially, as the week went on, like that actual, and it's it's not that death is the answer, or like, it's like, it's not nihilistic, like nothing matters. And so like, because we're all going to die. It's again that perspective taking, that sense of, can you be as big as the stars, where this very painful and very real thing is happening, but at the same time, like, there is a different way to see, and there we can be partially in that at the same time as we might be holding difficult things. So let's try it in practice, a little bit of that expansive practice, so that we can then return to the work of the world, with greater spaciousness and resources and resilience. So I want to invite you to find yourself a comfortable position. You can roll your shoulders open, you can find your seat. And as we do this sit, entering into Shabbat, Shabbat is the quintessential place of perspective taking. It's a little mini retreat from our troubles and the strife of the world, so that we can really deeply rest. We can find that spaciousness in order to come back. And so, if we can allow our bodies to enter into this Shabbat, this place of settledness, you can feel the seat holding you, supporting you in this moment. And just like God said, like, count up the sand. You can feel the ground underneath you, this vastness of the earth underneath you. Steady and ancient, that you can feel in this moment, that you can connect to. I want to invite you to let your shoulder blades slide down your back if you're sitting. You're also welcome to lie down. To relax your arms, to soften your jaw. to feel the breath moving through you. It's not your breath, it's not my breath, it's just breath. Each breath moving out into the space around you, drawing in from the space around you. And just allowing your awareness to expand and expand, to move outwards from your body to the corners of the room that you're in, extending out, outwards, imagining your entire house, your entire city, the country, the world, all the way up to the stars, to space. Each breath, part of this expansive whole. If you feel lost, if you feel consumed by your thoughts, you can always return to just this breath, feeling your body, this precious body in this precious moment. A piece, an interrelated piece of this vast galaxy. letting each breath aerate the places in your body of constriction or pain. Finding that space inside as well as outside. Expanding the space in between the vertebrae of your spine. In between your ribs as you breathe. Feeling the air around touching your skin. And that sacred breath breathing you. And we hear the voice of the divine telling us that we belong here. that we belong to the stars, that we belong to this earth, that the stars and the sand and the earth is just as much us as our thoughts and our stories. When you're ready, at your own pace, you can begin to open your eyes if they're closed. You can begin to bring your attention back into our space together. So, thank you for sitting with us today. And, may this Shabbat bring a sense of real spaciousness and connectedness at the same time as we hold our any pain or difficulty or dread or despair with a lot of compassion. Thank you.
Amen. Amen. Thank you so much, Yael. Just what we need for this Shabbat in particular. Friends, yes, that everybody please stay present for another couple of minutes as we create space for those who are in mourning or observing yard sites, or if it's your custom to recite the mourner's Kaddish, to do so. And if you're not reciting Kaddish, again, please stay present for those who are. Offer your compassionate support for them in their time of loss. You can put the name or names of those you're holding in your heart today in the chat now or after we recite Kaddish. And if you're doing so, I invite you to join me by rising in body or in spirit. And you can unmute at this time. Yitkadal, V'yikadash Shemei Rabbah, V'yamad Yivrach Yirutei, V'yamlich Malchutei, Kayechon, V'yamecho, V'yeh D'chol Beit Yisrael, Agala U'bizman Kariv, V'yimru, Amen. Yehei Rabba Barach Olam Amen. Barach v'yishtabach v'yishar v'yitzamam v'yitzeh v'yadar v'yitalev al shmei t'kudusha la'ela min kol bechata b'shirata b'chata b'nechemata b'amiran b'yama b'yimru Amen. Yehi shlama rabbanim shemaya b'chaim aleinu b'yalkut Yisrael v'yimru Amen. Oseh shalom b'mamav, Oseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'al kol yoshvei tevel v'yimru.
Amen. Amen.
Do you still want to use my computer?
Well, everyone, Shabbat Shalom. If you're leaving us now, I'm going to put in the chat a link, not a link, a list of our teachers, wonderful lineup of teachers for practice. And this week we'll be meeting all week, Monday through Friday. And you see the list there. Rabbi Robin Damsky Monday, Rabbi Shepard Gold on Tuesday, Rabbi Jenny Solomon on Wednesday, Rabbi Dorothy Richmond Thursday, and a week from today, Chaplain Marita Anderson will lead us. So wonderful week of practice coming up next week. We hope you'll join us. If you're leaving us now, wishing you a sweet restorative Shabbat, and we'll see you then. And if you're staying on, you're welcome just to continue to use this time and space to sit. If you want, you can turn the sound off on your computer or device and stay with the practice, beautiful practice that Yael guided us into today, to cultivate a little bit of spaciousness for whatever constriction you're noticing in your life or in your body right now, or join us for the conversation to explore some of the themes and just share reflections on your experience with the practice today in the chat, as always, which is now open. Okay, yeah, let's bring you in. Thanks, really big gift today. I want to, before we even get into it, I just want to preface everything by saying that, as always, today and always on our programs, we don't presume anybody's political affiliations or how you're feeling or responding. All those, from the whole, we assume the whole gamut of political views, perspectives, and feelings. And I think I would just say that I think that there, at times when our attention is drawn to those who are experiencing challenging emotions, that does not negate the fact that there might be other emotions present. So just wanted to state that up front, but also notice that that can be challenging for people who are not feeling those things this time. And you are just as welcome and just as valued to be here if you had a great week as if you had not such a good week. So let's start there. I loved that how you described this parsha. You've changed Lech Lecha forever for me here about kind of an practice instructions or when one is feeling in deep constriction. And you're right. I mean, things do not go Abraham and Sarah's way at all. In fact, just the opposite, really. They go totally south. And it's really amazing. And I also, I'm just like, my son is leaning, he's reading Torah at a school Shabbaton tomorrow. And this is exactly what he's reading. I just was practicing it with him.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden it sprang to life for me. Yeah. And the whole idea, like that verse, go outside. And it's true.
Outside.
I'll take you outside. Yeah. God will take you outside. Yeah. And look up, look up, see the stars. And it is amazing. It is amazing. And he's really affected by that, right? And then he says he had faith. He has faith and God, and it's a very ambiguous verse that follows. So he believed in God and God accounted it for him for good. But then he's back to like, but what about? Like immediately, and he has this experience of dread, darkness and dread. And he has this, it's just like very hard to parse part of Torah. But ultimately, my takeaway from your teaching was when you're feeling constriction, it's easy to say, well, just be spacious, but it actually really helps to go outside and look up at the sky, whether daytime or nighttime.
Yeah.
So thank you for that. That really.
Oof. Yeah. And I love what Alana put in the chat about just that actually this like looking at horizons and distance, like that's like a nervous system thing to do, which makes perfect sense. And that's the other piece, is like go out and look to the horizon. Just get outside of this one way of seeing, which only looks bad, which I've definitely succumbed to.
Well, we all do that. I mean, we also, we know about the negativity bias in general, right? So we're looking for, we're hardwired to look out for threats, dangers, whatever. So like that's what we may see first.
Yeah.
And the practice really is about, it doesn't mean there aren't those things. Those can still be true. That's the other thing I wanted to get to is that the dangerous aspect of this, I suppose, could be to say like, what does it matter? It's all. I saw also on social media this. You and I spend a lot of time on social media. We could just trade memes here, but another one of those amazing photographs from the Hubble telescope or Voyager or something that shows Earth in the Milky Way, from a distance. And it's just like, it's a speck. That really shifts your perspective on everything, right? But so it could lead to that sense of, well, nothing really matters. But that's not really what the Torah is saying here either, because the message still is there are promises to be fulfilled of blessing. That things are going to happen, and we all know that in Martin, I think it's attributed to Martin Luther King, but it isn't actually his line about the moral arc of the universe
Yeah.
is long, but it bends towards justice. I don't. He didn't get it. He got it from somewhere else, but
Yeah.
he made it famous for us. And I think that's there too. It's a big picture.
Yeah.
It's a big picture, and it's heading somewhere, which is, there's a directionality to it. And that it's not just, because it could lead to kind of a nihilism, right? Of like, what's the point? And I'm not going to get worked out. Like, why do I even have to bother to vote? Like, what's the difference, right?
Right.
And
Right.
it's not that at all. So we're going to be
Right.
clear about that. I don't know. What do you
Yeah.
think about that? Like, in terms of like, yeah, it doesn't look like it's happening, but it's going to happen one day, eventually,
Yeah.
if you look at the big picture.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there's a lot in what you just said. And I do think that there's kind of like a slight danger here of the bypass, what you're describing as like, let's bypass over everything because who cares? Because in the big picture, like whatever. And I I don't know why, but I do think there is some kind of tether back to like once you've I keep imagining, maybe because my kids are really into space right now,
Mm-hmm.
and because of this stuff about the stars, but I keep imagining this like idea of the astronauts, and they're out there in this vastness and this bigness, and they see this big picture, and yet like they kind of like have these hooks and stuff that like they hook back in on their spacewalks and they go back to Earth.
Mm-hmm.
Like what changes in their lives from having seen what they've seen and been where they've been is
Mm-hmm.
who knows? I'm imagining. I don't know many astronauts, but like I imagine for me, like the other side of that is
Mm-hmm.
the preciousness of this human life
Mm-hmm.
and how we act and what we do in the world in this life, but informed by this other thing.
I've often thought about that too, and in some ways wondered how could they not go a little bit, crazy when they come back, because it's almost like you're another species and other people have not had that experience. Interesting. And maybe somebody has studied that. Lori's asking this question, which I think is really interesting, about like whether this practice of loosening constriction may actually have, a tangible impact on the system
Mm,
generally, so that it isn't like checking out, or even we think about it as self-care, but it actually is an active repair
mm.
generally by doing that. What do you think about that?
I mean, to me, like, think about if you can think in your mind of somebody that you've seen that you really look up to. And at least for me, those people are, yeah, I think like the answer is definitely has an impact because otherwise, when we're stuck in these things, we're recreating the systems, the problems that like exist in the world. Like you
Mhm.
kind of need some kind of retreat, whether that's an inner retreat or outer retreat. We're big believers in meditation retreats through IJS, but Shabbat as a retreat, like we need it's not about just self-care for its own sake or so that you can come back and be a good worker, but like I do think it
Mhm.
changes the nature of how you interact with people and what you do and the kind of justice that you fight for when it's informed by this bigger picture.
Yeah. It's all this week is a little bit of a blur to me, but I'm trying to, either yesterday or the day before, our theme was stillness, I think. And I was thinking about it basically is a variation on that same theme, that in turbulent times, it is actually an act of resistance or countercultural in a positive way to be still, to manifest stillness. That it has an impact on the system, I think. So yeah, beautiful. I also want to go back to death.
Yeah.
Which I thought I really appreciate. I didn't see that. I really appreciated that you brought that in. I can see that it is joking, but it's basically the same thing, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And it's interesting that that is so much the theme of the high holidays. Now seems very long ago, but actually, right? The
Yep.
high Yamim Noraim, the days of awe, especially Yom Kippur, and basically having a brush with mortality and how that's meant to alter us, which is not that, you know, it isn't even well, you better make best use of your time because it's limited, but it's actually that you are connected. We are connected to something larger and that impact. So it's really the same. I think it's very much the same theme. And this is just this really helpful variation that's basically saying, I mean, for me, it's like, get out of your apartment and, you know, you better do that very frequently, and look up at the sky. And then I can see the wildfire smoke.
And
Uh,
that's all there. It's all part of it, but the beauty and the horror.
yeah. Um, I'm just going to take a quick scroll through here, see if there are other, by the way, it's not my son's bar mitzvah. I appreciate the Masel's house, but he's reading. He's just reading Torah, reading now. But I'm just struck by, wow, it's that one. It's cool. I'll have to tell him when he comes back. Well, you know what? Some people put this in the chat. I want to invite people to continue to put this in the chat. What for you is the equivalent of that practice instruction in Lechacha that Yael's lifting up of let God take you outside and direct your attention to the sky, to something larger. And the thing about it is that what God is saying seems impossible.
Yeah.
Not only God doesn't say, don't worry, you'll have a kid, even two, right?
Right.
That like you won't be able to count them.
Right.
And it doesn't even have to mean that literally, right? It's just that you cannot imagine. You literally can't imagine what is happening.
Yeah.
That's really helpful.
Yeah. I want to
Very
throw
helpful.
one more thing
Yeah.
in.
Yeah.
This is where things get real kooky, but we're among friends. What if it's not a metaphor? Like, what if God is saying, like, literally, your children are like the sand and the stars?
Mm.
Because scientifically, we actually are made of
Mm-hmm.
these things,
Yeah.
and that is our children and our ancestors.
Oh, wow.
And that's again like that, like your brain.
You're blowing my mind. And it's still true. And it's true.
Yeah.
And Robin Damsky is going to lead next week, Monday, I think. It's not only taking us out to something larger, it's connecting us, like you're saying, to our very essence, reminding us that we are made of that dust. And its expanse is our very expanse and possibility. Beautiful, Robin. Thank you for that. Yeah. All right. I'm going to go listen to Woodstock now. We are Stardust. All right. I think that's a wrap. Yeah, Al, thank you as always. Wonderful. Was really, and for everyone. I don't care what your political persuasion. We all need this. So may everyone have an inclination to follow that divine inclination to go outside and lift our eyes and breathe. And I also loved air rating. That was a great phrase too. Air rating the constrictions.
Yeah.
Chef's kiss. Chef's kiss for that. Beautiful. I love that. All right. So may everyone get some aeration over Shabbat and come back on Monday. Thanks so much to Natalie for holding our space beautifully. Each of you for being here